I looked on the earth, and behold, it was without form and void, and to the heavens, and they had no light. This is a passage from the Bible that at first glance you might think this is from the beginning of Genesis, but it's not. It's from Jeremiah chapter 4, verse 23. In this particular verse, he is referring to the destruction of the kingdom of Judah by Babylonian forces. Interesting how it sounds so similar to the beginning of Genesis, though. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was without form and void, and darkness was over the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. And God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. There are different opinions on the age of the earth. I'm of the opinion that we can't know for sure exactly how old the earth is. I've talked about this in more detail in an earlier video about the age of the earth, but I wanted to touch on this passage in Genesis again. What does it really say in here? Is it the beginning of all existence? Maybe, but not necessarily. Some people have tried to interpret a gap in between verse 1 and 2 of unknown time, but verses 1 through 3 should be read as one complete thought, so I don't know if a gap in time is intended here. But I'm also not sure if this story is even meant to be a story of the creation of the entire universe. The word created here is translated from the Hebrew word bara, which some have interpreted as meaning the creation out of nothing, though the word bara is used in other places in the Bible where that interpretation doesn't fit, so that probably isn't the best way to interpret the word create here. I think a better interpretation of what creation means here is assigning purpose. The passage is saying God assigned the heavens and the earth a purpose here. It isn't necessarily saying this is the creation of all existence out of nothing. I mean, I guess it could be the beginning of the universe, but there isn't really enough information here that would clarify that. Think of creation here like if you came across an abandoned rock quarry and then you decided to use rocks from the quarry to build yourself a house. The rock quarry before you arrived was formless and void, but when you used rocks to build a house, you gave those rocks a purpose. Those rocks were no longer formless. You created a house from those rocks. In Jeremiah, we see the description of the land of Judah being formless and void like how earth was described in the beginning, but we know that the actual land of Judah didn't cease to exist when the Babylonian army came, it just left it in ruins. So with that in mind, is that what it means in the opening passage of Genesis? Was the earth and heavens already here and God just assigned a purpose for them? I mean, that doesn't mean that God didn't create the universe out of nothing in the past, but I'm just not sure if that is the story being told here. I think it's good to consider the original audience this story was written to. Bear in mind, in ancient times they didn't have telescopes or space probes. They couldn't see other planets and stars and galaxies the way we do with telescopes and pictures from space probes. They could see the stars and nearby planets in the sky, but they didn't know how far away they were. They all looked like little lights in the sky, just like they do now if you look at them with the naked eye. Creating the heavens, which is the sky, may have just meant simply clearing a layer of clouds away so the sky and stars could be seen. For the ancient audience of this story, the whole universe was basically the land they lived on and the sky they could see above them. They didn't really have a way of knowing how vast the entire universe is the way we know it to be today. So with that in mind, is this story at the beginning of Genesis really about the creation of the universe? Or is it a story about God giving the earth a purpose and creating the first ancestor of the people the story is written to? If you go read Genesis chapters 7 and 8, where it talks about the aftermath of the great flood, you'll see that it's actually a similar story to the beginning of Genesis. The chaos of the flood ends and the earth is renewed with the animals from the ark and Noah's family. God even makes a similar covenant with Noah to the covenant originally made with Adam. But we know Noah's time was a renewal, not the beginning of the story, because we have a story that takes place before that. But is there something before the story of Adam? It's possible the earth could have already existed for a long time before Adam, but perhaps the storyteller chose to start the story at the time of Adam because that was the story that was relevant to the audience at the time, an audience who wasn't aware of the vastness of the entire universe. Imagine if you had a way to terraform Venus. Venus is essentially a planet that is formless and void. It's desolate and covered in clouds, so despite being close to the sun, the surface receives little sunlight, and it doesn't even have a moon. Let's say you had a way to break up those clouds and let light shine through to the surface, and you had a way to make plant life grow and then add some animals and people acclimated to the air and the temperature of Venus. Well, that might be kind of what is being described in the beginning of Genesis. The Earth might have already been here prior to the beginning of the story. It may have been a time when Earth was desolate and maybe covered in clouds. God might have cleared the clouds away to let the sun and moon shine. He then grew the plants and placed the animals and then molded a man from the dust and breathed life into him. The beginning of Genesis might be describing God doing that for the Earth. That doesn't mean that God didn't create the entire universe. I assume he did that as well. But is that what this story is about? If so, why is the creation of the universe just summed up in one sentence? I mean, we get 7 days of details of what he did to create the Earth. Why not go into details about the creation of the rest of the universe with all its stars and galaxies? Well, what would be the point of telling all of that to an audience that wasn't aware of what all that was? They didn't have telescopes and space probes to see what all was out there. For the original Israelite people this story was given to, the whole universe to them was just the land they were on and the sky they could see above them. I think the story may just be about the land and sky being assigned a purpose as a place for their first ancestor to live. I think Adam is the focus of the story here. The stuff before the creation of Adam may just be there as a little backstory to set the scene, so to speak. What do you think? Those are my thoughts on that. Thanks for listening.